As we expand the conversation this morning, I'm joined by Desmond Ogaku. He's a politician, rights activist, and a social affairs commentator. Thank you, Desmond, for coming on the program.
Dominic.
Dominic, I should say, for coming on the program. All right, so Dominic Ogaku, for the record. So, I mean, you and I had talked during the year, so as we wind up, I'm thinking we can look at, say, for instance, the removal of fuel subsidy. Some people say the president got off on the wrong footing when he actually made that pronouncement, which some economists have now argued is not actually an economic policy. It was just a pronouncement the president made off the top of his head. And today, Nigeria has not been the same economically. So what have been your thoughts about this?
Thank you very much for having me this morning. I remember that early this year, we had a press conference with regards to fuel subsidy. And part of our discussion was that there were supposed to be some things.
By way of palliatives?
Palliative, not just palliative. There was supposed to be a restructuring of the entire fuel regime to allow for the removal of subsidy. But having said that, I think that thought has changed with what has happened now. I see President Tinubu as a very proactive person, one who will not want to leave things on the shelf or be procedural in trying to. His approach is actually to first aim or to first shoot before aiming. What that means is that in his thinking, I'm just trying to
interpret his mind.
Yes, in his mind. You know, possibly he was looking at the fact that if he comes to office and now see the gamut of challenges that will be hovering around the fuel subsidy issue and the rest, he might not have the political will or the courage to now make that decision. And so the best approach was to, from the onset, no matter what it will cost him, no matter the sufferings, no matter the challenges, to first strike that out, and that's what he did. And to a large extent, that has worked. Because every president has always come with the intention of removing fuel subsidy.
They end up not doing
it. So what he did was that it was for him to first shoot before aiming, which means he didn't want to take into cognizance the many gamut of challenges surrounding the entire discussion and all that. So I think Nigerians will be better for it. With what we are hearing, that the Port Harcourt refinery is taking off, the Dangote refinery is taking off, invariably, I think we are heading towards the promised land.
Interesting, because as good as this sounds now, the narrative out there is such that Labour is not buying any of this, because Labour is saying you have further plunged millions of Nigerians into poverty. Of course, you and I know how that there had been a series of protests in this country on account of that. However, there are those who also give credit to President Tinubu for saying that he has been forthcoming, he has been cooperative, he has been on the side of Labour, so to speak, and so on and so forth. But let's talk about how that protests by Labour severally have also disrupted the economic flow of the nation, and what can be done, maybe not once and for all, but at least for the long term, to resolve the issues that Labour agitates about.
The truth of the matter is that, you know, I'm an activist, a practicing one at that, and given the tenets of what we do, there is no way that, as Labour is also a union,
right,
you know, that is pro-people, is there to defend the people's interest, public interest and all that. And what Labour, their role is to be able to checkmate the activities of government. And in the last couple of months, they've been doing that. They've been trying to ensure that government does not make policies that are anti-people, that at the end of the day is just to play to the gallery or just for a few. And that's their role. But having said that, let me say that in this your studio, the last time when Labour had issues, right, the president and all that, I had said that Labour has to rejig our approach. You see, we are confronted by a different kind of challenges right now.
Different from the previous ones?
From the previous one. So we have to be able to rejig our strategy to match the current challenges. Let me tell you, we have always said as Nigerians, we know that before we can enter the promised land, or before we can see the brighter side of what we are looking at, we must first go through a series of challenges. That is what every country that is set to move to the next level or that is set for prosperity must go through. But in Nigeria, that has not been the case. We want to eat our cake and have it. We don't want to pay the price. We are not even ready to take the sufferings at the moment to ensure that the good. The only fear that I have is that let it not be that this administration is a scam. So that when the people have gone through all these challenges, when the people have gone through all these sufferings, when the people have taken all these pains, and they will now discover that we have not made any headway, that is where the problem will now be. As long as the sincerity of purpose with regards to what the administration is set out to do, I believe that these reforms, especially with regards to the fuel subsidy regime and the rest of it, is at the end of the day to profit Nigerians. For instance, let me tell you, so far we are hearing that every month they have been saving ₦1 trillion, right? That should be translated into something more formidable. For instance, if our refineries can pick up, if with all these resources we know that in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, we are not going to be importing fuel again, what is better than that? What is far greater than that? So for me, I feel that yes, Labour has its role to play. The reason Labour will always speak out is to be able to checkmate this administration. Because you see, if you don't checkmate them, the tendency that they will become very authoritative, they will become very insolvent, they will become totally unaccountable to the people.
That's the politicians.
The politicians, the government, the politicians in this instance, they may not be accountable to anybody. And so you need a structure like Labour, you need a union like Labour to be able to hold them at every point in time. But Labour too has to change our strategy, knowing that we are dealing with very, very peculiar times. It is not as usual. We are not, everybody knows Nigerians are suffering. Go to the things are skyrocketing by the seconds.
In terms of prices? In
terms of prices. So it is not, we need to change the approach. The perspective must change.
You talked about refinery just a few minutes ago. The government had promised months ago that by end of year, at least one refinery will be working. I mean, full capacity. That's Port Harcourt in particular. Yes. But now, just yesterday, the government is saying that it will now be after Christmas. Is that not same old, same old?
Okay, that's what we are saying. We are talking about, because I didn't even know that this information has come up, because already a lot of people on social media have been promoting government and saying our government is doing well, the refineries are working, the Port Harcourt refinery and all that. But even if they have to buy time, say early January, it's still okay. They are still within the time frame.
As long as you said they are sincere about the purpose.
As long as they are sincere. It's the sincerity of purpose that we are talking about. We need people who will be totally sincere, who know that Nigerians are ready. You know, Nigerians, we are ready. If things are going to work out, we are ready to enjoy or to endure this suffering for a moment, knowing fully well that the future is better. Imagine, even the salaries that people earn now cannot even take them home. Talk more of even putting food on their table. So we are at the lowest ebb of our national life. So every Nigerian, if you try to find very deeply, is ready to pay the ultimate price, as long as there's sincerity of purpose by this administration.
There's an issue that happened a few months ago between the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, all right, Joe Ajaero, and of course Imo State government. Some people say Imo State governor. But whatever the case may be, we do know that that incident happened right there in Owerri, Imo State capital. And some people say, well, the president was asking for too much. He was overstepping his bounds. That's the NLC president, that it was a state-specific issue. And as such, should have been left altogether to the state chapter of the NLC. Of course, I know you are not here to hold brief for the NLC, but you are interested in what Labour is doing as it affects civil society. Ironically, the state chapter of the NLC in Imo was said to be, if you like, on good terms with the state government. So did Ajaero not overstep his bounds in that case?
No, definitely he did. He himself knows that he did. And that's why you see the matter did not see the light of the day, in spite of all the uproar and the cry. You see, the truth of it, that's why we have to always come back to this point.
Right.
You see, it is not business as usual. You see, it's like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. No, you will get the same result. If, for instance, as a Labour president, you did not follow through the structure that you have in the state, and you want to come from top, you have been compromised. That's what it means, totally. Because first, you have to be in sync with your chapter at the grassroots. I think that was an error on his part. It's like President Tinubu now, maybe until the matter of this River State was brought to him, before he stepped in. He cannot just stay from Abuja and say, Fubara or Wike. No. It must come to you. It must be procedural. It must get to the level. But you see what Ajero tried to do, I would not fault him. One, that's his state. So he's an interested party. However you want to look at it, he's an interested party.
Whether as a Labour president or as somebody who originally comes from that state.
It's an interested party. So at that level, there are so many narratives as to what happened. So, but that, I'm sure he must have learned his lesson. That it is, the fact that you are the national president of the Nigerian Union or Nigerian Labour Congress does not give you the prima facie advantage of trying to hold that to get yourself entangled in issues like that. Because whether you like it or not, you get messed up, and that's exactly what happened. You get messed up, and that's exactly what happened.
I'm interested in this angle that says that, of course, he has been accused of being a member of the Labour Party, that's the LP now, that he has partisan interest. If there's any truth in that, I mean, with a big if, any truth in that, is it not a way of saying that even Labour itself, as an entity, has been compromised beyond their president?
That is a Nigerian issue. The Nigerian factor is always that we are a people of interest.
Right.
You know, we had this discussion some time ago in my office with a few people, and people said the Labour Party was registered by the Nigerian Labour Congress. So invariably, there's no way the Nigerian Labour Congress will stay outside the Labour Party.
A case of chicken and egg and chicken.
So that is the truth of the matter. So however you want to look at it, but having said that, you need to be able to put the demarcation between you as a Nigerian Labour Congress president and you as a party man, however you want to do it. If not, you'll be running into a series of trouble like what happened in that case. For me, actually, is a model case. It goes to show that no matter who you are, you might not always have the people on your side. Right. So imagine that your local chapter is not even in support of what you are doing. That already
shows there's
has balkanized the entire process, has given you, has actually sold you out in however you want to look at it. And so you can see the way the whole matter went. At the end of the day, it was even at the mercy of the state governor. And the state governor or the state government now was not having a field day over him. And it shouldn't be like that, because whether you like it or not, you are a person who drives public opinion. And so you must be careful what you do.
The actions you take,
so that
your
it will not alter the perception, public perception with regards to you. Because in every fight, there are people on both sides.
Right.
In every fight, there are people on both sides.
Let's move away to issues that are more politics specific. I mean, you were in this country when we conducted the 2023 general election. We've seen 3 off-cycle elections after that, Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi. What have been your thoughts? What has been your assessment about these elections? In terms of conduct, in terms of the standards, in terms of outcomes?
Nothing too much has changed. But let's start with the general election.
All right.
For me, the general election was a decider. However you want to look at it, I feel that there is providence even in the electoral process. Because with the emergence of President Tinubu, it goes to show that sometimes, you know, we don't really know who is going to be our leader. Nobody gave him a chance. Don't forget, this is a man that they had to redesign the Naira because of him. They had to hot fuel because of him. They had to do so many terrible things because of him. His party did not support him. The cabal did not support him. And he ended up winning the election. However you want to, I think the issues were not even with regards to the matters that were taken to court. It was more on technical grounds than even trying to contest the outcome of the election. It was more on his certification, his origin, his dad. People were not more, his age. People were not more talking about whether he won or he did not win. You understand?
So they were all pre-election issues?
They were all pre-election issues. They were all very sundry issues, as we know. You know, they were not really based on whether the man won or not. That nobody was able to prove whether he won or not, because it was, to a large extent, looking from the results that came in and how it came, that the man won the election. However he did it, we cannot tell. So for me, that set the tone for whatever happened in Imo Bayelsa and Kogi. You know, because with APC now being at the center, it's most likely that there's no way they are going to lose Imo, no matter how you want to try. There was no way they are going to lose Kogi, no matter how, even the Kogi election, the people in Kogi were not even put together. In fact, later we started gathering information that Yahaya Bello, if not for his inability to really communicate his agenda or to be able to communicate his performance in office, he did far better than what people are, the narrative that is out here. So I think that aided a lot of things. He made his own fair share of mistakes. But then at the end of the day, I have people from constituencies where some of these candidates were running from that believed even in the Yahaya Bello's agenda than a separate agenda. These are people, indigenous from Kogi. You understand? Who were giving reports that the way it stands, yes, we understand that he had his own flaws and the rest of it. So what's that supposed to say? What does that tell? It tells you that politics is about interest. It's not about what we hear. It's not about hearsay. It's not about emotions. Emotions can play, but you know the winner must emerge. Somebody must come out to win, and that's exactly what happened. Bayelsa, you saw what happened. PDP retained that state. Why? Because the governor there has done very well. In fact, the last time I traveled to Bayelsa, his whole senatorial district, the transformation that is going on there, I was very, very impressed. So you see, the way the elections went, then the issue of INEC again. INEC, I think our legislations, our laws, we are yet to really understand, to give full interpretation to our laws. INEC has a role to play in our election management. But I think those who are campaigning or canvassing for INEC to be unbundled, they are very correct. Because the first challenge INEC is that INEC is still tied to the apron string of the executive. So no matter how you want to look at it, there is a nexus between their performance and what the executive have to offer. So at every point in time, when people bash INEC and all that, we need to go back to the legislation. Yes, the reforms, or what do I call it? The overhauling of the entire INEC structure prior to the election was acceptable, but that did not translate to much even in the final analysis.
In the election proper? In
the election proper. For instance, we're talking about BVAS, we're talking about electronic transmission of results and all that. At the end of the day, those things did not even appeal to Nigerians. It was after the election day, everybody went their separate ways. Nobody's even talking about those issues again until maybe when we are getting close to 2027, that's when we wake up. Whereas those issues are supposed to be on the front burner.
So what are we doing to address them now?
To address them now, before we get to that point. Before we get to the point where we begin to use the fire brigade approach. That's why I said it's a matter of legislation. If the National Assembly can begin to look at those issues, test run them ahead of time, ensure that not when you get to the 11th hour, sometimes even when we are even very, very close to the election, that's when we begin to raise these issues. But these are the issues that should be discussed and addressed now.
You talked about how that, I mean, your own opinion, the chairman of INEC or INEC itself as an entity is tied to the apron strings of the executive. Are you one of those who believe or muting the idea that we should reconsider how INEC chairmen are appointed?
Definitely.
So what's your recommendation?
Well, I believe that it is not more about my recommendation because I don't tend to know it all. But I feel that they have to become a model through which the INEC chairman will be appointed.
Other than what we currently have?
Other than what we have, a president single-handedly appointing someone as INEC chairman. That does not give, that gives room for a lot of compromise. Because whether you like it or not, he who pays the piper, he takes the tune. So first, possibly the idea of unbundling INEC so that INEC might necessarily not need to depend. For instance, you remember Mahmoud saying that they had shortage of funds. They were even lobbying to get funds. If a man has to come to the level of lobbying you to get resources to conduct an election, what do you think will happen? So maybe we need to start from there, the funding process. Maybe the independence of the structure first with regards to how it drives its fund, how it generates its own revenue. That is very important. Are you getting me? And then even with regards to even tenureship, because another thing is that if you allow a man to say, okay, you can do first 5 years, then you do another first 5 years, already you are putting that man at your mercy. Because if I know that I'm trying to scheme to be reappointed as INEC chairman, what will happen?
For a second term of 5 years.
For a second term of 5 years. What do you think will happen? I'll try to play to your dictates. I'll try to be loyal to you so that I will not miss my appointment as the chairman of INEC. So these are some of the issues that need to receive considerations before we talk finally about how the process should be carried out.
Let's talk about opposition politics. The general election and the 3-year cycle that we've seen so far have again questioned whether or not we have viable opposition politics in Nigeria. Of course, when you talk about opposition in Nigeria at the federal level, all eyes tend to naturally turn to the PDP. But whether or not the PDP has been effective in playing that role vis-a-vis what we had seen with the, as it then was, the AC and the ACN then, is probably a conversation for another day. But as it stands today, would you say we have viable opposition in this country from top to bottom?
My answer is a big capital no.
Why is that?
Well, the first test of an opposition is its viability. And there's, let me give you, in fact, we discussed this matter yesterday, a litmus test, a case study, the issue of rivers. The issue of rivers. The issue of rivers. You will discover that a PDP has no voice, it has totally lost its voice.
Even when it's a PDP state?
Even when it's a PDP state. In just about 24 hours, 27 members within your own fold, they come to another party. Nobody, so far as we speak, nobody from the national structure of the PDP has been able to talk about the case in Rivers. However, whatever is happening, I cannot tell. Possibly, I think they are suffering from the hangover of the 2023 election.
The loss?
Not just the loss, because there are a lot of issues that the PDP is not bold enough to confront.
And brought those issues into the election.
Thank you very much. They are still not, they are still not ready to wake up to smell the coffee. They are still acting as if, they are still carrying on as if there is nothing wrong with their party. Whereas we know their party is totally going into extinction. Totally. Totally. For instance, I give a very simple example. There is a member of the PDP that is serving in this administration that is not accountable to the PDP. He does not behave like a PDP member, but he is still very relevant to the PDP. There is no connection between him and his party. It does not happen anywhere like that.
Could that be because of the money back factor?
Not necessarily the money back. These are, for me, these are ethical issues. These are issues that border on how the party has been administered in the first instance. Which means there are a lot of issues within the party, a lot of odd things happening within the party that the party is not bold enough to address. Because for you first to be able to be viable, or for the people to see you as a viable opposition, you must first deal with those issues. You must first deal with those issues. Some people will not be bigger than the party. Once you begin to have people that appear larger than the party, then the party is drifting towards extinction, which means nobody is in charge. If you have a party chairman that cannot even talk to, that is already has been pocketed, what kind of opposition? That man will just be playing according to the script that is given to him by those who are ahead of him. So for me, even the Labour Party that should have been a viable opposition, you see that once the election is over and they now have people who are in position and all that, those ones are already acting like all they needed was just to use the structure to get to where it's like a vehicle that is taking you to somewhere. And in their own estimation, they have arrived at their destination.
So the enthusiasm has waned.
Has gone down. They are not appearing like an opposition front and everything. They have already blended into the entire. They are already living like the politicians that they criticize ab initio.
Within this short time?
Within this short time.
Right.
They are already living like that. And what you now have is that you have their presidential candidate standing alone and even fighting for breath to ensure that he survives. And he's trying to create an opposition, but he does not see the same fire. He's not coming with the same firepower that he had prior to the election or during the election. So for me, that's why a lot of postulations, already people are saying that it's like the country is becoming a one-party state.
Yeah, but is there any truth in that?
No, because whether you like it or not, if everybody is gravitating towards the APC, if everybody is looking at Tinubu as the messiah, if even the oppositions, people in the oppositions that should pick holes in some of the policies of government are already seeing him as aligning to that, that tells you that it will not be long before even the stammerer will pronounce his name.
I want us to talk a little more about Rivers. I mean, we've seen governors and their successors having issues back and forth in this country, so there's nothing really new on that level. However, there are people who say the rift between Wike and his godson, Fubara, started too early. Let's have some insight into some of the factors responsible for these kind of conflicts.
The truth be told, you know, we discuss this thing in my office, because my office is almost like we discuss almost everything, you know, and I told them, because the first thing is that they say Wike has lost out, the Fubara has finished Wike and all that. I said, my friend, you are all making a very terrible mistake. This war, Fubara does not have the war chest to be able to withstand Wike.
Even as a state governor?
Even as a state governor. You know why? You must choose your battle wisely. Like you said, it started too early in the first instance. Do you know that in all of this, it was Wike who called for peace? Do you realize that? Because he knows that at the end of the day, even the peace, inserting that peace, it was going to be favorable to him. You know why? He's aware of his powers. He's aware of his investment. Even
when he's out of the government of Rivers State.
He's aware of his equity. He knows. He knows. He knows. You see, yes, governors have been having issues with their successors and all that. But Wike and Fubara's case is a very unique and distinct.
In what ways?
First, you will agree with me that Wike is still as relevant as possible.
In Rivers State?
To national politics. It's still very relevant. Most of those governors who even try to, they don't have, Wike's relevance precedes even his position as Minister of FCT. Wike's relevance speaks to 2027, because that is a dummy that he's selling to even the President of the Federation. If you allow my fortunes, my political fortunes to begin to dwindle, invariably your 2027 ambition will suffer some collateral damage.
Before it even gets started.
So if a man is already talking in that mood, and don't forget this president say, Wike is not just one of my cabinet members, he's one of my advisors. I listen to him more than I listen to everybody. He has unfettered access to the president. So these are some of the narratives that will change whatever will play out at the end of the day. And Fubara knows this very well. He knows that for him to survive above water, he must, at every point in time, if it was that President Tinubu is not President Buhari. President Buhari is a laissez-faire leader. He does not care. He does not care. In fact, that's why a lot of people took advantage of that, his laissez-faire nature, to undermine
the state,
the state, undermine the country, and did a lot of terrible things. Not because Buhari was interested in all those things. That's why they looted the country dry. That's why they acted with impunity. Why? Because they know who they were dealing with. But President Tinubu is not like that. President Tinubu is a president that has his ears to the ground. He's a man who is prepared. He's already calculating towards his re-election. Do you get what I mean? So, and in that mode, there are a lot of issues that he's taking into consideration. Don't forget that Tinubu is one president that he has reversed a lot of policies that he feels that is going to affect his popularity. He has actually listened. For instance, if you remember very well, the young boy in FEMA that was appointed, and when people cried out, what happened? He immediately changed it. There was even a nominee for NDDC from Cross River State that was nominated. He was not a party guy, he was a PDP member. People brought it up, he changed it. There was this guy from Ondo too, he listened to it. Even the Ondo issue that we are talking about, what happened in Ondo State, you see the way he handled it.
Between Akeredolu and his deputy.
And his deputy. See the way he handled it. And brought peace, a lasting peace to it. And he was fair and balanced in his judgment.
But there are people who say that was also a wrong move, that the president should have allowed the constitution to run its course. You don't share that sentiment, do you? I mean, we know that Governor Akeredolu has been very sick. I mean, not strong enough to even administer the states. Came back from overseas where he had been for treatment and went straight to Oyo State, not Ondo, his state where he is supposed to be the governor. Under those circumstances, is the constitution not clear that power should be immediately transmitted to the deputy? Why did we have that fight between the governor's camp and the deputy governor's camp, and they had to come to Abuja a couple of times?
But the president is not in all that until the matter was brought to the president, and the president said the deputy governor should act in his stead, should take charge. Was that not fair enough? Or what should they have done? Because at the level of the state, they were trying to cover up, they were trying to do all that.
Right.
Like I said, you don't expect the president to just sit in Abuja and give...
And call it a shot over Ondo.
Until the matter comes to his desk. Because the buck stops with him. So when the matter came to him, you see the way he addressed it. Is the deputy governor not acting as governor now? Is he not in charge? Is he not the one that is giving all the instructions? The matter has been resolved.
Let's talk about Wike a little more, because Wike has said repeatedly, in fact, he granted an interview that was a bit exclusive not too long ago, a matter of days ago, where he also said again that he cannot stand ungrateful people. He has accused his godson, as we know him now, talking about Governor Fubara, as being ungrateful. What is the context for that?
The truth of the matter is, however you want to look at it, I feel that Fubara did not put himself together properly. He should know Wike from the beginning. He should know. He should know the battles that Wike has fought. Wike fought Amechi, another very stubborn
former governor.
He fought him to a standstill in very controversial circumstance. Even when Amechi was very relevant, a key player at the center, Wike fought. So you should know the antecedent of people you are working with. You should know. So I'm sure what he's doing now, saying that there is no price too much to pay for peace, that should have been his original perspective before now.
Talking about the governor.
The governor, Fubara. Should not have allowed it to degenerate to this point, and then now you are now becoming emotional and at the mercy of even Wike at the end of the day. Because if the agreement that they have reached should stand, then invariably it's even worse than how it was originally. Do you understand? Now you have a House of Assembly that is totally against you. Because they are going to have trust issues at the end of the day. Going forward, they are going to be because it cannot be trusted. It cannot be trusted. Because they have seen that he's ready. You saw what he did. He already was operating a factional government. It shouldn't have even degenerated to this point. If he knows, or if he knew that there is no price too much to pay for peace.
The governor now has been, if you like, instructed to giving the truce that has been brokered by the president to represent his 800 billion naira appropriation to a fuller House of Assembly.
Thank you very much.
Is that not satanically erroneous?
The truth of the matter is that the governor was actually progressing in error.
So this is a reversal of that error?
Yes, it was an error. However you want to look at it, it was a big-time error. He should have waited to even see the court decide whether those people were still members of his party before taking that kind of drastic move. He should have waited. Should have been more temperate. But what he did was that he was trying to, I think he was listening to the wrong voices. The whispers were coming from the wrong quarters. The people who were out to use him to settle scores with Wike. And in that instance, they made him to progress in the wrong direction. And thank God for the intervention of Mr. President, because there were a lot of illegitimacy in what he was doing. You taking, at least if the court has even decided, has ruled that these people were no longer House of Assembly members, it would be nice for you, at that point you can now go ahead. But for you to now, out of a house of over 30 people, you now go and present your budget to just about 5 persons, does that not tell you that there's something wrong? So I'm sure these are, for me, I must tell you most solemnly, and we need to begin to get into that consciousness. People actually don't appreciate what we do for them in this country. And that's part of the leadership challenge that we have.
Like people like Fubara is being accused now, not appreciating
No, there is the truth of the matter.
Wike for what he did for him.
Yes, because Wike went out of his way.
To make him governor.
To making him governor. If you remember very well, even Fubara was supposed to be disqualified. Wike stood his ground. They dragged him up and down. The same people who are even trying to act as if they are his supporters now, that he's trying to act like they are his kingsmen and the rest, they were the ones who wanted to kill him. They did everything possible. They demarketed him. They said all manner of things about him. Ran him down to a level that he was, in fact, he will not even be accepted by even the commonest person. But that man, Wike, stood by him. For me, it's not about, say, godfatherism and the rest of it. Somebody must be above you. Somebody must be there to give you guidance. And even if you don't want to take the person's opinion, there's a way to go about it. You have to be more diplomatic about it.
Without starting a war.
Without starting a war, when you know that you don't have the war chest. So for me, he was not diplomatic enough. Because knowing fully well that he knows who he is contending with, he knows who he's coming against, he should have allowed himself to gather more moisture, to gather more steam, to be more formidable before launching out, to even say, okay, I do not want to follow you in this direction. But not just a day after you're taking over and you're already trying to prove that you have a war chest. No, it will not fly anywhere.
There is the assessment that for allowing even Wike to be at that meeting, for example, the one that the president called, was some insidious endorsement of godfatherism.
Well, I told you that it was Wike who stood for peace. You know, Wike went to Port Harcourt to say he's open for peace. He's open for peace. Because Wike knows that when push comes to shove, it's going to be to his favor. When they come to the table of negotiation, when he puts his cards down, and begin to tell them exactly the negotiations and all that, the agreements they entered into. Nobody will listen to those agreements.
So there's an agreement between him and Fubara,
proud
to him
proud to all that.
So
as for instance, he will start by saying, did you buy form for yourself? Did you, as governor, did you buy form? This assembly, he will begin to mention, he will give them the scorecards.
And the accusations about monthly remittance to former Governor Wike as well, every other month.
For me, some of those issues were just, even the governor himself have not said some of those things. I think this matter started on grounds of trying to detach himself too early from Wike. And it speaks to disloyalty. It speaks to, because possibly he feels that I have served too much and then I have now become governor. So let me assume the powers of a governor. But in trying to do that, I'm sure he did not really count. You know, they say he wants to go to war, must count his arsenals. You know.
So the governor miscalculated?
He actually miscalculated. However you want to look at it, he miscalculated. Forget the hue and cry. Forget what people are saying. Forget the fact that people are using that as a way of saying godfatherism and the rest. It's not just about godfatherism. This Wike's case with Fubara is a very unique, is a classical case. I tell you most of them.
Beyond the regular
former
governor, successor
and all that and all that and all that. Beyond, I'm not saying that Wike is right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the act of war, you must be strategic. Your strategy would tell you whether you win or not.
Since we are talking about big events for 2023 now, as we begin to wrap up, let's also see an event from Edo State between Governor Obaseki and his 2IC, the Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu. Some people say that conflict is a ticking time bomb. Others say, well, the bomb has already exploded. You've been following that development. What have been your thoughts as well?
Well, for me, the Edo issue is actually being taken out of range.
By the governor and the deputy, or by members of the public?
By all quarters. First, Philip Shaibu. I do not know how the basis upon which he's thinking that he has to hold tight to becoming governor of Edo State.
But does he not have the right to
No, he has
run?
the right. He has the right, but in equity, you know, in giving the way we are trying to ensure that things flow in Nigeria. Yes, he has the right. Possibly he had an agreement with the governor to enter and all that and all that. But I believe that if it's ever going to be governor, then it's going to be Providence. Why I say that is that I think governorship should be going to Edo Central by the permutations. And the governor is trying to do that to ensure that he will be seen as a just and equitable person.
Having made that promise again and again in 2020.
Thank you very much. So I feel that as his deputy, he should have known from the onset that he will be running against very, well, some people have said there's nothing that is impossible in politics. So possibly he's relying on that. Don't forget again, from where he comes from, that should have been a stronghold. He has Oshomole to contend with. And this is a man that has rubbished all everywhere.
Going into Governor Obasaki's second term.
You know, this is somebody that should have been one of his strongest pillars. And don't forget that the entire Edo North is totally loyal to Oshomole, especially given the fact that he has been able to worm his way back into the hearts of the people and into power. So I think it will take the mercy of Oshomole to even begin to reconsider him in that light. And Oshomole, in all fairness, will not want to put his hands into what might appear like he's talking from both sides of his mouth.
You know, there's the argument by some that politics is not a straightforward thing, that there are a couple of possibilities. The deputy governor now, Shaibu, could defect to the APC and somehow worm his way back into the heart of Oshomole and other stalwarts of the APC. And then so others are saying, well, it's also possible that the PDP, being that it's already balkanized in the state, because you have the Governor Obasaki faction, you have the Dan Obi faction. And just to mention too that Dan Obi is the current vice chairman of the south of the PDP. So they are saying, well, it's also possible at the twilight of the whole crisis, the Obi faction of the party could snatch him off just to be able to wage war against the Obasaki faction. Help us make sense of all of those possibilities in the final analysis.
Like they say in politics, there's nothing that is impossible. Politics is a game of possibilities.
Right.
And those are permutations, those are insinuations from different quarters. And the good thing about Shaibu is that Shaibu is focused. He knows his onions. He knows that he wants to be governor, and he's working towards becoming governor. How this will play out is a matter of days, weeks, months as we progress. And like you said, the PDP in Edo State is actually very, very factionalized. You know, I think for the Edo State PDP is just there. There is really nothing. You cannot talk about a formidable party of a PDP in Edo State. But I don't even see, if they're not very careful, what I foresee is that the APC might be taking over Edo State again.
Incidentally, I'm afraid as the much time will allow us to talk about all of these issues. Dominic Ogaku, thank you so very much for coming to share with us today. And this is where we're leaving it on Global Morning. On behalf of my colleagues and the entire production team, thank you for spending a part of your time with us. Happy holidays, Nigerians.